Welcome to the 2025 Owl Arcade Christmas Special. And what's so special about it, you ask? Nothing really, it's Christmas. It's a little bit different format. It's not so much about arcade machinery per se in this episode, but it's celebrating the best part of Christmas that everybody loves, which is the giving and receiving of gifts. So I've been fortunate enough to participate in the Overtime Arcade members only Secret Santa gift exchange this year. Part one of this Christmas special is going to be all about the gift that I made for my Secret Santa recipient, who actually turned out to be Charlie of Overtime Arcade. So I had to try and pull something pretty special out the bag for Charlie, because he's a great dude. I wanted to secretly impress Charlie a little bit, so hopefully we did that. And part two, we are going to go through looking at the gifts that I received from my Secret Santa. So without further ado, why don't you grab yourself some eggnog, kick back, and enjoy the Owl Arcade 2025 Christmas special. After much internal deliberation, I decided that I would make Charlie a light-up marquee, using his Overtime Arcade logos and artwork as the basis for the design. So basically, I took a screen grab of the Overtime Arcade logo needed for this project, and I also did an internet search for a decent quality Burger Time marquee and smashed the two together. And my plan was to have the art professionally printed onto a translite material using a local print shop and sandwich it between two pieces of plastic. So the first thing I had to do was upscale the original images so they were of a high enough resolution to be printed. I used Google to find a free online AI upscaling tool. There's plenty out there, can't remember which one it was, but I had a go at increasing the resolution to 6900 pixels wide by 2700 pixels tall, which was quite a big increase from the originals, and which is at a ratio equivalent to dimensions of 23 inches wide by 9 inches tall, the same as the original Burger Time marquee, and the size at which we will print our artwork. So that's effectively a pixel density of 300 dots per inch, which is the minimum that you would really want for professional artwork. This actually worked out really well, but I had to go over much of the image by hand to do some tidying. I also had to tweak things a little bit, so the burger had to shrink a little and move over to fit between the O and the T, and of course I changed the name from Peter Pepper to Charlie's name, which I've blurred out here for reasons of privacy. I did all this using the free open source art software Krita, and it maybe took altogether 8 to 10 hours, I would guess, to go from this to this. I was pleased enough with how the art had turned out to proceed with the project and get started on a design for an enclosure. For the light box, because that's what we're calling it, we're basically aiming at a design that looks like you've just chopped off the marquee section of a real arcade cabinet. And originally I thought about basing this on the actual Burger Time cabinet to keep the theme going, but there's a lot going on with the marquee area of that cabinet. And looking at it, I didn't think that taking a section through it would look particularly great. You'd have to take a wide margin to capture the bulky bits, mimicking kind of Peter Pepper's hat sort of thing right there, and then cut this section back in down here and lose some of that anyway. So that's really a no-go. We're going to keep it simple so the focus is really maintained on the artwork of the marquee. For the light source, we're using this here USB 12-volt powered cabinet lighting strip, and it's good because it's USB powered. Doesn't require any fancy wiring for us to get it working, but it's got 3 different color temperatures to it, and also you can dim it, because the main concern I had over this is that it would be too bright and it might wash out the colors of the marquee. I've done a little bit of experimentation to see what distance from the light gets the best diffusion and the most even lighting across the marquee, and I'll show you a little bit of that in a second. But I think this is going to work okay. I'll put a link in the description. But this is the solution we're going to go with because it's the most simplistic. It's got some mounting hardware that we'll probably use to mount this into the back of the box. It's got clips, it's got a little wiring zip strip there, and some self-adhesive strips. Not sure what we're going to use yet. Probably these, because we can screw them in, these mounting clips. Screw them into the wood. Just plugged it in sort of naked, if you will, to show you what sort of gradient we can get. That was its brightest setting, and we just stepped it down to its dimmest setting. So there's quite a contrast between them, I think. Even, yeah, you can see that on camera here. It goes pretty darn bright, all the way down to, I think, marquee type levels. All right, I just happen to have 4 boxes, identical boxes, sitting around here in the office. And these are about 1.75 inches tall. I should have mentioned that the light strip itself is 20 inches long, whereas the marquee is 23 inches wide. So we've got 1.5 inches at either end that is not covered by the light strip, but that's okay. It should diffuse out okay from the center. And so let's have a look and see what it looks like with the light strip about 1.75 inches away from the back of the marquee. Okay, turned the lights off here in the office. Light strip on. I mean, for starters, it's a bit wonky. It's not in the middle. There we go. Looks about right. So it seems to be kind of concentrated in the middle there. Let's have a little fiddle with the, oh, there we go. So that's the hottest. You can see how it affects how the colors come through, but generally speaking, it seems as though this light source is a little bit close. Okay, so we are shimmed now just over 3¼ inches away from the light source. And here we go, 1, 2, 3. That's better. That's much better. I mean, besides, obviously, we've got some shadows here from the box, the edge of the box, and the painter's tape on the back side here. That's definitely a much more uniform distribution of light. It's reaching the left edge, it's reaching the right edge, it's getting to the top, it's getting to the bottom. So I'm kind of happy with that. We're talking like 3 inches, again, just over 3¼ inches. Let's have a little bit of a cycle through the, whoa, that's very bright. Again, very well lit, but kind of washes the colors out a little bit. That's a bit better. Not a bad uniform distribution of light on that. That's pretty good. Let's have a cycle through the different color temps again. It's a little bit warmer. And again, it defaults to like a medium brightness each time you change color temp. And that's the warmest one. Again, it defaults to about a medium. It's turning the, what should be blue, a little bit purple. Anyway, in terms of what we were trying to achieve here in figuring out what sort of distance we need the marquee to be from the light source in order to get a good light distribution, I would say anything 3+ inches at this stage is what we should be targeting. So let's take that back into our design in CAD.
As I've already decided, we're going to keep this design pretty simple, and I've modeled out the individual bits and pieces quickly in Creo so that I could get a good visual for the aesthetics and be able to make any needed tweaks before I go cutting any wood, especially where it concerns the overhangs of the sides to the top and the bottom. I want it to look proportionate to a typical arcade cabinet where the overhangs can range from 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch and maybe more, especially as we've seen with the Burger Time cabinet. Again, I want to keep this more about the art of the marquee than it is about the light box. So we'll keep our overhangs modest. I'm aiming for something between 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, I think. Basically, we'll see how it looks and take it from there. So I modeled the side out first. You'll notice that I put a little bit of a taper on the bottom edge with a 1/2 inch radii. And the centers of the radii are where I defined my front dimension is the 9 inches, which is the height of the marquee. So we would get a 1/2 inch overhang basically on the top and on the bottom here. The top and bottom are just rectangular pieces, 4.5 inches deep. Again, I played around with the dimensions a little bit, but here's the 23 inches wide to match our marquee. And then in terms of depth, we wanted to generate at least 3 inches from where the light fixture is going to be to the rear of the marquee to get our proper light diffusion. And aesthetically, I think it looks pretty good at 4.5. So we've settled on that for both the top and bottom panels. And here it is fully assembled. We're going to be making it out of 5/8 inch thick particle board. That's to keep the cost down and keep the weight down, given what we're making here. The particle board's going to take paint very nicely. We're going to end up painting this black, putting some T-molding around the front too. So I need to actually get some 5/8 T-molding. I didn't think about that before I bought the particle board. I've only got 1/2 inch T-molding available to me right now, so I'm going to have to buy some and hope that it arrives in time. So let's get cracking.
All right, here's the material we're going to be working with. Call it material, it's not really wood, it's particle board. And it's 2 feet by 2 feet, which means we've got 24 inches to play with. 23 inches is our widest piece. I've got 2 pieces of this 5/8 of an inch thick particle board. So I think I've got enough material to do what we need to do. There's only a bit of a problem. Yes, Mother Nature has decided to smite us. We've had lots of snow and ice. We had a power cut last night for a few hours, so I couldn't get on and get the power tools going, and now I've got ice all in the spot where I wanted to do the woodworking. So I think what I'm going to do is drop the tailgate on the truck, give us an even space to work from, and hopefully we can at least get this wood cutting knocked out and get the pieces that we need finished off. Let's give it a go. All right, kitted out with our PPE, eyes and ears. I don't want my union steward, aka my wife, coming around and catching me without my proper PPE. We're going to start with ripping the tops and bottoms. Magical. 2 pieces, 4.5 inches tall. Now we just need to cut these off at just over 23 inches wide. Now, I want it just over 23 inches because I don't want it so tight that I can't get the marquee in there once it's all assembled. We'll get on and do that after I've figured out what else I need to rip on the table saw. And what I need to rip is going to be a couple of square pieces for the left and right hand sides. Now we need to do the miter saw cuts. So I'm going to go have a little look in CAD what angle we need to take these off at and come back to the miter saw and finish those off.
Here we are back at Creo in sketch view for our side panel. And I think what I just need to do here is grab a dimension and pop it in there. And that says basically 78.25 degrees. Let's take it to the miter saw.
Once again, the Insta360 app has screwed up some of my video, which is okay, because you didn't really need to watch me put the taper cuts on the side panels, and instead I can bring you a very Christmassy, roaring open fire. Then we can just skip straight ahead to figuring out how to put the radii on the side panels. Welcome to our non-OSHA compliant workspace. I apologise for the mess over here. Time is not my friend right now. I just need to get this knocked out real quick. This is from our Halloween project, believe it or not. But here's what we're going to do. I've got an 1.25" hole saw. What we'll be able to extract from this hole saw is a little circle of wood, which we should be able to stick onto our side piece. Okay, I've been having a look in my tools and I found a hole saw that's ever so slightly bigger. This one at 35mm, and I think I'm going to be happy with a slightly larger radius, so let's give it a go. Nice! There we have our new guide. Let's get it mounted to our first side piece. Alrighty, we've got our guide stuck to one of our side pieces with some double-sided Gorilla Tape. I'm hoping that I can hopefully pop that off and stick it up in the other corner here once we've routed it out. But I've got my router depth all set, so we're going to flip this over, get it clamped to this semi-clean area of my workbench, and zip this off real quick. Not too bad at all. So let's see if we can get that guide popped off and onto the top corner there. And we've left a little lip on here. Oh, well, that's got rid of it. Now we need to get the guide pulled off and these two side pieces laid over one another, and then I can use the router again to just go around, and then we should have two identical pieces. We're done. All right, there they are. Two identical side pieces, nicely flush cut, and with a beautiful radius, which I think is going to work just perfectly with the T-molding. So now, speaking of T-molding, we have to put the T-molding groove into both of these. So I've switched out the bit in my router for the T-molding bit, and I'm going to set the height, and then we're going to route these out. But let's get cracking with that then, shall we? 8.9. Clamp it there. Let's have a look and see how we did. Not too shabby. What do you think about that? Right down the middle. Beautiful. I think our side panels are done. All right, we've tidied up our workspace a little bit and laid out these pieces here so that we can think about joining them together. And the method that we're going to use is dowels. And there's the little dowel kit up the back there. But you get the general idea. We've got the side panels that are going to sit up like that. You've got the top panel, the bottom panel, which are going to be at right angles there. And so we need to put dowels in the ends of the top and bottom panels, both either end, both ends, and we need to put dowel holes into the side panels in the appropriate spots as well. So we're going to use our dowel kit to help us do that. Our particle board is 5/8 of an inch thick, and rule of thumb is you don't want to go much more than like half the width with your hole size for your dowel. So with this being 5/8, half of 5/8 is 5/16. These are the 5/16 dowels here. So we're going to be using 2, 4, 6, 8 of these in total with some wood glue, and get this bad boy assembled and into some kind of lightbox shape. These 5/16 dowels are smack on 1.5 inches long. I want to leave some depth in the side panel. I don't want to go all the way through with my drill. I can go deeper into here as deep as I care for, really, but we want to control the depth into this wood. So I'm going to leave 1/8, and with this being 5/8, that would mean a 4/8 deep hole, or in other words, a 1/2 inch. So we know these are 1.5 inches. I need to put a 1/2 inch hole into the side panel, therefore I need to put 1 inch hole, plus maybe a little bit, into the top and bottom panels.
Everybody got that?
Good. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to knock this other panel out, the either top or bottom, whichever, I haven't decided yet, in the same way, and then we'll come back and talk about those side panels and what we're going to do there. Be right back. Ta-da! And there we are. Both pieces, both ends. The holes don't necessarily align, and that's okay. Here we have one of our side pieces. So we can figure out the center line for where the top piece needs to have the dowel holes drilled. Obviously it's going to abut this back face, so we can use that for alignment. But we know from our modelling that we were targeting to have the top of the wood a 1/2 inch down from the top. So we want to go a 1/2 inch down to the top of the wood, and then we're doing 5/16. And so a 1/2 inch plus 5/16 is 13/16. So what we need to do here is measure out from the top. 16, 15, 14, 13 is right there. And same here. 15, 14, 13, there we go. All right, and then we can use our speed square, hopefully to get a nice square line as to where that needs to go. All right, so that would be where we need to be putting our dowel holes. We need to designate IKEA style which joints are going together. So I'm just going to mark these with an A. So that's joint A. We don't need to worry too much about writing on this because we're going to paint it. But A goes with A. Now what we're going to do is make sure that these stay together. That joint mate helps us locate where we're going to put the holes in this side panel. It's got grooves aligned with each of the different hole sizes. And what we do is we pop a dowel in, and we use that to locate where the corresponding hole needs to be. So now it's just a case of essentially lining this joint mate up onto our center line. And it does have a little clamp thing here that we're going to use for that very purpose. So let's assemble that. And we need to set it so that it's sitting on the center line, which right there, that's done there, perfect. Good Lord, I like that a lot. All right, let's grip this in position for our first hole. That should do. We are set, my friends. Now I need to set the depth of the drill bit again with a stop. And I just realized that I've clamped this down and I can't do that now, which is really helpful. So let's take this off again. Here's what we could do. Is me getting all fancy with my micrometer and such. Let's see if we can't set this by eye. I think that's probably as deep as I want to go, and that is a bit disappointing. I thought I was going to get a little bit deeper than that, but obviously again I don't want to go through the other end of the workpiece. So all right, let's get this clamped back down. That's got it. Well, let's see what damage we can do here then, shall we? That's that one done. Did we bust through? How deep is this dowel getting, I wonder? Well, I don't want to poke it in there because that's really very tight. Let's do a little test with the micrometer, because again, I don't want to be too shallow on this because I'm going to glue it. And if I find that I'm too shallow, once I've put all the glue in there, I'm going to be really unhappy. We're at 57 1/28. That's a very specific fraction. I'm going to get dangerous here and shove that down as far as it'll go. Oh, we are just clearing it. Wow. Okay. We're just clearing it, but clearing it we are. So that's pretty much perfect. Wow. Now I've got to try and pull that out of there. Where are my grips? Hole 1 was a success. And then here comes hole number 2. Ta-da! There are my corresponding B holes. And there are my corresponding A holes. Good. So what we need to do now is take this top panel away and replace it with the bottom panel and figure out what we're going to do about getting holes in the right spot to give us that 9-inch from the top of the top to the bottom of the bottom. And yeah, then we'll be good to go. All right, I've made my brain hurt, but I figured it out. So the distance that we need these center lines to be is basically the 9 inches less 5/8. So if I measure 9 inches less 5/8, that should be where our center line for these other set of holes should be. So I'll measure that and mark that up now. So I've measured them both out, drawn our lines using our speed square, and just to double check, I should have an overhang of 5/16 when I measure out 9 inches. So there's our 5/16 on that side, and there's our 5/16 on that side. We've measured twice, and we're going to cut once, as my dad says. It's very wise. So I would say we are ready to assemble. Now I picked up this bad boy to help with holding this thing at a right angle. This is just a 90-degree angle clamp. And so I'm going to glue all of this stuff up, get it all aligned, and then hopefully we should only need this angle clamp in one corner, because just a true 90-degree on just one corner should hold everything else square. So that's the theory. That's what I'm going with. Let's give it a go. So we need wood glue. Okay, we've got dowels, we've got wood glue, we've got clamp. So we'll start with these two. I'm going to pop a bit of wood glue in there, a bit of glue in there. I'm going to splurge a little bit along here. How far out do we need to go? Kind of to there. We'll probably do a little bit of cleanup with all this. Get some in there, get some in there. Beautiful. So I'm hoping that's enough wood glue in those holes there, we'll see. So let's push that in. Push that in. We've got some glue squirting out. It's a good sign. So, oh, we've got glue running. Okay, this is going down. Let me grab my rubber persuader. Are we in? Almost. Oh, we've got glue all over. What's going on here? Okay, and we've got a couple clamps that we can clamp this with as well, just to squeeze the last of it out. So that's the A joint. We'll do the C joint. Perfect. And now we put our right angled clamp on here. Let's put it on this corner. clamp that nice and tight. There we go. We are clamped. And again, I need to do the one corner because if I got my measurements all right, just making sure one corner square holds everything else square. Okay, so here's how we're looking from up top here. Not too shabby. Got some nice tight joints there. Like I said, we've just got a little bit of glue that's seeping out there. I'm going to get a damp shop towel and just run it up the inside there. It is cold out here in the garage. I'm going to take this inside so that it can be warm and have the glue set overnight. And then we'll come back and talk about what we're going to do about the back panel. Check that out. Glue's dried. Here's a little sneak peek as to how things are looking. The marquee artwork itself is fitting very nicely in the space. It's pretty much bang on what we needed it to be. So I'm pretty pleased with that. My T-molding, on the other hand, has come in. My 5/8 T-molding, and I was looking at the size of the barb. Barbara, where are you? There you are. And looking at the width of my T-molding slot, and I had cause to question whether I'd cut the right size slot for this size barb. And the answer to that, of course, is no. We do not have the right size slot. So I've just had to order another slot cutter. Luckily, Amazon has what I need and can deliver it tomorrow. Today is Thursday, late Thursday. I've got until Saturday, basically, to get this in the mail. It needs to go. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to arrive on time, and I'm out of state all next week on business. So, really up against it now. We're going to take this light box out to the garage and figure out what to do with the back panel. So let's get cracking. I've made a decision as to what I'm going to do with this back panel. Just like an arcade machine, I want the back panel to sit inside within the frame. So I've bought some poplar, cut this down to the right size to give a couple of like furring strips, if you will, to put on the inside. And we'll glue and finish nail those in place with my finish nailer. So we need to cut a panel that fits just inside this space. So what we should find is that 9 inches minus 1 1/4 total, which is 7 3/4 inches, is how tall we need our back panel to be. So trust but verify, 7 3/4 inches on the nose. So 7 3/4 inches tall, and then obviously 23 inches wide. As you saw when we'd offered up the marquee, which is bang on 23, it just had a ever such slight gap at either end, and I'm good with that. I want a slight gap top to bottom, a slight gap side to side, so we can slip that panel in and out without too much hassle. So let's go rip that down on the table saw out on the back of the truck again. Take a look at that. I've flipped it over onto its back. So this is the back panel here underneath. These are our side pieces of poplar that we just cut, pushed in there. As you can see, they're a pretty good fit. And just for giggles, I know we have 1.5 inches to play with on either end of the light bar, as we discussed earlier on, but I just wanted to lay it in there and see how it's fitting, and I am very pleased with how this is turning out. So what we need to do now is get some glue behind these side pieces and then finish nail them in. I'm going to check the depth of the finish nail, maybe put them in at an angle, make sure I don't blast through the sides. I don't need to show you gluing and finish nailing. You've seen that done a dozen times before. I'm just going to go ahead and do it and then come back and show you the finished results. And there we have it. Glued, nailed, pop these in at a bit of an angle, nothing burst through the other side. Now we are ready to figure out how the back panel is going to attach. Now for that, obviously it just sits in there like I said, and what we will do is we'll drill holes in this, 1, 2, 3, and I picked up some black cabinet screws because we're going to paint this black. Let's get to work popping some holes in here, drilling some holes. We'll countersink them so that they sit down flush in there. We're going to start by selecting a drill bit that matches the really the shank of the screw. I'm going to go with 7/64. I can see the shank just barely poking by around the outside of the drill bit, and I'm okay with that. That's going to ensure that we get good catch on the thread in the hole, and it will bite a little bit through the wood there as well. So we're going to go with that. Now we are going to measure this out so that we get these in the right spot. So we want to be about halfway in to the poplar. I believe it's 1 by 2, so it comes in at 3/4 inch. Half of 3/4 is 3/8, so we can measure that out on the top here. 1, 2, 3/8 in is there, 3/8 in is there. That's our drilling line right there, and we want one in the middle. So we're at 7 3/4. Half of 7 3/4 is 3 7/8, I believe. So I've marked that in the middle. 3 7/8 that side, 3 7/8 that side. So perfect. That is right in the middle there. Let's do 3/4 inch in from the edge. See how that looks. 3/4 inch right there. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3 targets to hit. And just checking what depth we need to hit with this drill bit, we pretty much need to go the whole way, just less than. And that should give us plenty to countersink and get a full insertion of the screw. All right, we're going to just put a countersink on there. There we go, that should do. And the reason we're countersinking this is obviously this is going to mount flat against a wall, I would assume. So we need to have nothing protruding on the back face here. That side's pretty good. So now we should be able to check how these are working out for us. Common sense tells me no, but I am going to use the impact. So here goes. I'm going to pop this one in the middle first of all. Perfect. Let's pop these other two in and then we can work on the other end. Beautiful. All right, let's get this thing spun around so you can see the other side. Beautiful. And there we have it. Let's get this sticker cleaned out of here and then think about getting this painted. But before we do, you're asking, how are we going to affix the marquee onto the front face here? Well, many arcade machines, much of mine, have a kind of L-shaped bracket on the top and bottom that basically holds it in, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We've got a piece of angle aluminum, which is slightly wider on what will be the face that screws into the wood than the front lip, which is basically just to retain the marquee. This isn't ideal. This is the best I could find. This is a 1/2 inch by 3/4 inch, and I really wanted it a little bit longer than that so that it would give us a little bit of play on how deep we could get this. So we're going to be cutting it a bit fine, putting the screw holes and screws in here, but that's okay. I think it'll do. This is the best I could find in a pinch. So we're going to use this. This will need to be sprayed black, same black that we're going to spray the box. What I'll probably do is cut this down now to the right widths, obviously 23 inches, 2 lots of. Then we'll need to start with the painting. So let me cut this down and we'll be back. Ta-da! And there it is. Used the old blade there to scrape up the sticker and get that nasty stuff off the inside there. But how about these trim pieces, huh? I used my Dremel with a cut-off wheel and then actually used the steel blade here to take the burrs off. It's surprisingly good for taking burrs off aluminum, is a steel blade. And there we go, there's the top and there's the bottom. So now we just need to figure out what depth this is going to sit at to clamp down the marquee and where we need to drill holes in the underside. I'm probably going to put 3 screws in here. That's typically what arcade cabinets have. So 1 smack dab in the middle and then one at either end again, just like we did with the back panel. We'll figure out the spacing for those, and then we'll be very, very close to painting. We've marked up our first retaining bracket, obviously 23 inches wide, 11.5 right in the middle, and I've done just 2 inches in from the end for each of these two. So I'm going to select an appropriate drill bit, get a piece of wood underneath these, and drill out some holes pretty much as close to the edge as I can without blowing through the aluminum on the end. So I'll do inboard a little bit, because then that will give us maximum depth when we actually mount it to the frame, to the light box. So wish me luck. Here they are. Top retainer on the right, bottom retainer on the left. I tried to get the holes as close to the edge as practicable. They didn't have to be perfect, and by golly, they're most definitely not. But that's okay. We're not going to see them underneath the heads of the fasteners, which I still need to purchase. So that is good enough for those two. Moving on to another little task here. We need a way for the power cable for the light bar to get out of the back here. And I want to have it sort of central, coming out the back. So, you know, you're probably going to mount it on a wall, and the power cable is going to come down from the unit and plug in an outlet that's going to be lower down. So coming out of the back in the center is preferred. I'm going to use my router. I've set up my speed square as a guide. I've already got the distance correct for the router bit to hit that center line there at 11.5 inches from the edge, so it's central. So we're going to take a cut inwards, and then we're probably going to do the same just on the back here a little bit. So the idea is that there's kind of a hole that comes through at a bit of an angle into the cavity of the light box there, and that should be sufficient to let that cable through. So we are going to have a go, first of all, at cutting this section here.
Boom. There it is.
We're set up here, we're clamped, so we can just take a little nibble. Just a little nibble. And that should be sufficient for that cable to come out. I think we got it, folks. There it goes through the back. And there we go. I'd call that a success. There's one more thing I want to do before we are effectively ready to get this thing painted. Keyholes. This needs to have a method of mounting it onto the wall, and the easiest way of mounting it is stick a couple fasteners in the wall and then basically drop this on top. So we're going to drill a big hole, big-ish hole, right at this mark. That's 2.5 inches down from the top and 5 inches in from the side. And I kind of feel like that's good placement, so we're just going with it. So we're going to drill a big hole, and then we're going to come back in here with a router and route upwards slightly so that you can pop this over the top of like a screw head and drop it down, and it will secure up on the wall. So let's get to doing that. I didn't catch this keyhole on camera, but I'm going to try and catch this one on camera so you can see how I've done it. Just going to make sure that's overhanging the work table. And then we're going to drop our router in the hole, get our router so that it looks like it's central, speed square up against the router. So we're going to clamp that speed square down again. We're clamped, and we're going to clamp the workpiece to the work table. And now we're ready to rock. Right, I think they're about as deep as one another. I'll measure them quickly from nose to tail and make sure that they are both the same using millimeters, about 15 mil. Oh, that one's a touch over. We're at about 16 mil on that side. Now, I'm assuming that I got my original holes in the right spot, so I'm actually 50 mil from the top of the back panel to the bottom of the keyhole. Oh yeah, I got that spot on. So I just need to go about another mil on this one, otherwise it's going to hang wonky on the wall, isn't it? And we don't want that. That should do it. What's that, just over 16? Just over 16. By Jove, I think he's got it. How's that look? One keyhole, two keyholes. Pretty neat, huh? Alrighty, I've mocked up the light onto the back panel. It is held in place with these two metal clips, one here and one here. 3 inches in from the outside on both sides. And the clips are screwed into the wood. I'll show you those in a second. And also to help with cable routing and management so this doesn't flop around, I have attached the included tie, don't know what you call these, which has self-adhesive on the back, and it also, you can probably just about see it there, there's a screw that holds that in as well. So let me just pull this back off and show you the clips. So here's one of the clips held in place with these tiny little screws. I used a 1/16 size drill bit to put a, not quite the full depth of one of these screws, a little pilot hole into the wood, and then screwed those down. They've bitten quite nicely. They are solid, so I'm pretty happy with that. And basically the same here, same screw, same approach, 16th drill bit. The other thing I've done is now marked up the holes for where the retaining brackets need to go that hold the marquee on. And I did that by putting the marquee on top, so I got the thickness, and then put the brackets on, and then just used a pencil to identify where the holes were. I'm pleased to see that they are actually fairly reasonably far back from the outer edge there. I thought they were going to be much closer. So I'm pleased to see that. We've got a lot of material left to work with there. I'm not at all concerned about that, but of course I do need to bang a couple of pilot holes into the particle board so that our fasteners will go in. And speaking of fasteners, where'd they gone? They were in here. Which one of my cats has run away with my fasteners? Be right back. Oi, you. Where are my fasteners? Where are my fasteners? Columbo? I know it was you. Where are my fasteners? Where are they? Where are my fasteners? Dang it, man. Ooh. All right, before we do anything else, this is my T-molding slot cutter. Let's get this and that back out to the garage with this and those, and get these minor bits tidied up, and then we can think about doing the painting. Fantastic. And that does look appreciably wider than the slot before, so I would have really struggled to have gotten that T-molding in there. And good job we found that out when we did, otherwise we'd have been in a world of pain. Please don't tell my union steward that I wasn't wearing protective gear when I did that. Just got a little bit of dust in my eyes. Now we need to drill these holes in either side. I'm just going to leave it clamped to the table like this. I could not for the life of me find those fasteners, so I had to go and buy some more, which is okay because I had to go buy a respirator anywho, and I'll explain why in a moment. And there it is. I'm going to flip this over and do the other side. You don't need to hang around for that. I'll see you back in the house. Before we go any further, would you care to explain this? I just went upstairs to change my clothes and found these at the foot of my bed. Would you care to explain how these got up there? Would you? Would you? You ratbag. Okay, so what's this big old lump of vinyl that Columbo has been playing with, among other things of mine that Columbo's been playing with? It's still my favourite, it's okay. This big old lump of vinyl is an inflatable spray booth. Why is it in the house? Well, it's 26 degrees outside. It's really very cold. So that is not paint spraying weather, and obviously it's very cold in the garage too. So that's not paint spraying weather in there. Plus, that's how much space I've got in the garage right now. There's no room in here anyway, even if the temperature was up to spec. So while my union steward is out at work, we're going to set this up in the house. We've cleared out the room, the space here. This is really going to freak Columbo out because this is basically a bounce house pump, air blower thing. And it's going to get quite noisy in here. And we need to keep that running the entire time that the tent is up so that it stays inflated and upright and turgid, if you will. So let's get that set up and get staged inside the spray booth so that we can get all the stuff painted. Splendid. Look at that. All right, let's get the bits and pieces inside and staged and ready for some painting. Cool, we're all set up. We've got some little paint triangles underneath the pieces of the light box to just raise them up a little bit so we can get spraying around the outside and whatnot. And I've hung a piece of twine from corner to corner so that I could hang the metal retainers up there and get those sprayed too. I've already cleaned these metal parts off with some isopropyl alcohol, got rid of the sticker residue that was on this one. Really, I'd like a semi-gloss, but I could not find any, so I'm going to use the Rust-Oleum satin paint and primer in one. I haven't got time to prime and wait for that and sand it back and all that jazz. This is getting a few light coats of this, and we're going to be done with it. So let's get you set up and let's get to painting. My union steward's going to be proud of me. Got our respirator on, which is good for paint. So we're ready to zip this up. Gotta shake this for a minute. All right, I think we're good to go. Ah, that was really silly, wasn't it? That's the front face as well. Gosh darn it. Alright, we'll leave it there for now. This paint's starting to go out. We'll let this dry. We'll come back and see what damage we've done to this metal. It's looking increasingly likely that I'm going to have to spray that again. Alright, let's leave that there. We'll come back in about an hour. Oh, good lord. I've had to open the door because it absolutely reeks in here. It just smells like paint fumes, unsurprisingly. So I've got to wear this place out before my union steward comes home because she is going to be pretty annoyed at me. So yeah, let's get this stink gone. Whew. Ta-da! Here we are with everything laid out, finished, painted, ready to go. I will point out that you saw me walk into one of these retaining brackets. That caused me to have to strip it right down again on my wire wheel because some of the paint had already cured. Not only that, after I repainted it, I walked into it again. So I didn't just do it once, twice, but one of these got coated 3 times. I'm an idiot, quite frankly, but they've turned out really nice. We've even got our fasteners, look. We've got our cabinet fasteners for the back panel, and we've got our retaining bracket fasteners here, which I didn't show you this, but I painted the heads of these black as well. Yes, these are the same fasteners that my darling Columbo ran off with overnight. So thank you, Columbo, for the little bit of a goose chase there. You're an absolute diamond. I am wearing gloves because the first thing we need to do is get rid of the overspray. There has been quite a bit on these parts, and it makes it appear as though the paint hasn't cured when it really has. So we're going to get rid of the overspray, and we are going to then finish this off once it's fully assembled by cutting and installing the T-molding, and then we are good to go. So let's get cracking. Hopefully this is a good angle where you can see what I'm up to, but I've just got a shop towel, slightly moistened. I use these shop towels because they're usually pretty good at not dropping fibres. There's not really much coming off here actually, which is good. When I handled these parts earlier, I definitely got some overspray on my gloves. So I was expecting a little bit more to be coming off here, but we're doing pretty good actually. I'm going to call that a success. Alrighty, let's get to assembling. Starting with the back panel and the light. Fantastic, we're all assembled. The marquee is really beautifully secure in here. I couldn't have wanted for anything better there, to be honest. So now we need to do the T-molding. I'm sure you've seen this done before, but what we need to do because of these two bends here is do some relief cuts in the back. Take some of this material out in the corners so that it allows it to bend. Otherwise it's going to kind of concertina in and then it's got a tendency to pop out. We do not want that. So I'm going to get my side cutters. Okay, managed to find my side cutters and also my knife. So I'm going with the socket if I need it, but primarily the rubber mallet approach, dropping pieces of rubber all over this thing. I'll tidy this up in a second. First of all, we need to figure out where we need to put our relief cuts. So it looks like we need to start right around here. Just cutting little triangles out. I think putting 3 in here. Just like that. I'm certainly glad we figured out the whole channel width thing here, because there's absolutely no way we would have gotten this in here otherwise. Let's just bring this over, drop it on the floor. Okay, we need to do some more relief cuts. 3 more triangles right about here. So let's go, start there. 3. Okay, that should be plenty. Okay, now comes the tricky part. Bingo. So same again on the left. We're going to put our relief cuts in here. And there we are, we're in. Let's get this cut and then trimmed. So you can see how it's kind of a little bit of a rough finish here right now. And I'm just going to trim this off with a knife so that it's flush. This T-molding cuts pretty easily. There we go. Beautiful. Let's get this place tidied up and then we can take a look at our finished results. Ta-da! The finished product. We just moved into the office here so we could get the light turned down. And you can see what it looks like when illuminated. Got a nice even distribution of light across here. So we got our distance from the strip light to the back of the marquee, correct? There it is. We haven't got time to enjoy. We need to get this packaged up and in the mail lickety-split. So thank you for watching part 1 of this Christmas special. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are at part 2, which is the reveal of our gifts that we received from our Secret Santa. So last night we did a members-only Overtime Arcade live stream event where everybody who was participating went around and unwrapped all of their gifts. So I don't have gifts to unwrap, but I have gifts to show you. Some very cool, very awesome gifts they are too. My Secret Santa was Chris, aka Pon Pokemon. Thank you very, very much, Chris. Chris did an awesome job of packaging everything up beautifully. You know, hand-wrapped gifts, so very well done. So thank you ever so much for that. And awesome gifts. So why don't we start with taking a look at gift number 1. Ta-da! Here it is. This is an original glass bezel. This is such a thoughtful gift. This is actually the final piece in my Super Pac-Man puzzle. Besides the flipping stencils that still haven't turned up so that I can redo the side art, of course. But in terms of parts, I have everything I need now. Thanks to Matt, aka SNES Cube 64, who hooked me up with the game board, power supply, basically all the original internal components that were not present in my Super Pac-Man turned Golden Tee. If you haven't seen my Super Pac-Man / Golden Tee video, please go check that out. You'll see what I'm talking about. But this, in terms of an original piece, is just so beautiful. Really, really awesome, nice condition. So I'm really pleased and grateful about that. That's such a kind gift. Thank you again, Chris, aka Pon Pokemon, for that. That was gift number 1. There are 3 more. So let's take a look at gift number 2. Ta-da! Gift number 2. Retro Arcade Salt and Pepper Shakers. This is fantastic. I'm going to take these straight upstairs and get these filled up with some salt and pepper. These are awesome. They're so much fun. Really thoughtful gift. I'm going to have fun seasoning any food with these forevermore. They are the intergalactic condiment. You got to shake to power up and battle to win the spice war. This is fantastic. Thank you ever so much for these. Again, beautifully wrapped, and I was actually trying to save some of the tape. Pon Pokemon had used different video game flavored tape. This was Zelda tape. There was some Mario tape. Really nicely done. Really nicely done. So thank you for the salt and pepper shakers. That was gift number 2. On to gift number 3. Sticking with the Pac-Man theme. How about that? This is a pocket-sized LCD Pac-Man game. This is fantastic. Game keyring, as it says there. So I can put this on my belt and never be far away from a quick game of Pac-Man. So I'm looking forward to getting this out of the packaging and getting my Pac-Man on. This is super fun because I don't yet own a Pac-Man arcade machine, but now I do own my very own Pac-Man game. So I can have fun playing this wherever I feel. Again, very thoughtful gift, sticking with the Pac-Man theme. Absolutely love it. Thank you ever so much, Pon Pokemon. Last but not least, this last gift is going to need a little bit of explaining. Not only did I get a gift, a physical gift, I also received the gift of knowledge. I learned something new, thanks to some insight from the Overtime Arcade channel members that participated in the Secret Santa and did the unveiling last night. We all had to talk about what was going on here. Now, I'm being a little bit cryptic here, so let's get to it. Let me show you the gift and then we'll explain what's going on. Here's gift number 4. Ta-da! Yes, it's Ball Blazer for the Atari 7800. This is an original. It's still got the cellophane wrapper on it as well. That's very, very cool with a little hang tag. Obviously, it's been opened, it's been used, it's been loved, but that's what we like. You know, these games are made to be played. But I can't play this one. Yes, there was a cartridge inside, but there's a catch. Let me show you the cartridge. You'll notice in the middle here, someone's had this apart. Why would they have this apart? Well, let's take a little look at what the letter says. I thought you might still like the box and cart. Sorry for getting your hopes up. The good news is all you need to get it working is another pokey. Turns out that this particular game, Ball Blazer, has a desirable chip installed onto the circuit board. It's an Atari pokey. The easiest way, apparently, to get a hold of an old pokey, if you're in need of one for fixing Atari arcade games, is to get hold of a copy of Ball Blazer, take it apart, and take out the pokey, and there you go. Of course, you can't play the game anymore, but you've got yourself a cheap pokey chip, way easier than trying to get hold of a pokey chip by some other means. So I'm just going to pop this screw out here, take a look inside at the game board, and see if what we suspect is true. Screw out, case cracked. All you need is another pokey. You're absolutely right, Pun Pokemon. That is where the pokey chip should be, and it is notably absent. So this was used as a donor to fix some other game board that needed a replacement pokey. So of course, thank you, Pun Pokemon. I am now on a mission to find a pokey chip so that I can at least play one round of this game and say that I've played my Christmas gift from you before probably desoldering it and keeping it for a spare part for myself all the same. That's a funny gift. That's where you can get your pokey chips from, Ball Blazer. Thank you ever so much for that, Pun Pokemon. I'm going to add it with my other collection of Atari games until we find a chip and we can maybe have a go at resurrecting this game. Well, folks, that's a wrap for our 2025 Christmas special. Might be the last video I release in the year 2025, but we've got some good stuff in the pipeline, so don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel so you get notifications of when those next videos come out. Leave us a comment, get involved, tell me what you enjoyed, tell me what you didn't enjoy. Most of all, have a very safe and happy holiday, wherever you may be and however you celebrate. And we will no doubt see you again in 2026. Cheers.